Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
Have you ever wondered why some people achieve lasting success while others only dream about it? What truly separates those who grow year after year from those who stay stuck in the same place? And could it be that the difference lies not in talent or luck, but in the standards we set for ourselves? So what are standards? They are the rules you establish for your own life, the minimum requirements you refuse to live without. Standards are not what you desire, not what you hope for, and not what you simply wish for. They are non-negotiable lines that define who you are and what you accept. Most people carry wishes, but very few actually have standards. People often say they wish for more success, better relationships, or improved health. They wish they had more time, more money, or more opportunity. But wishes alone are like seeds without soil or water. They never grow into anything meaningful. Standards, on the other hand, create a line in the sand that says, I will not accept less than this. When you set a true standard, you move heaven and earth to live up to it. You don't try, you do. You don't just hope, you commit. I remember speaking with a man who told me he wanted financial independence. When I asked what he was doing to achieve it, he said, I hope to save more this year. I'm trying to learn about investing. I wish I had started earlier. Do you hear the language? Hope, try, wish. Those are not the words of someone with standards. They are the words of someone with wishes. Now compare that to another man I met. When I asked him the same question, his answer was firm. I save 30% of every dollar I earn, no exceptions. I read one book on finance every month. I meet with my financial advisor quarterly. I track every expense. Do you hear the difference? This man lived by standards, not wishes. And that is the first key to raising your standards. Understanding the difference between what you merely wish for and what you are fully committed to. So it really comes down to this. What are you willing to accept, and what are you no longer willing to accept? You might be asking, does it really make that much of a difference? The truth is, it makes all the difference. Your standards don't just influence your life, they create it. Look at any area where you're excelling, and I guarantee you've set high standards there. Now look at any area where you're struggling, and you'll find you've accepted lower standards. Your health reflects the standards you set for how you eat, move, and rest. Your finances reflect the standards you hold for earning, saving, investing, and spending. The same is true for your relationships. They mirror your standards for how you communicate, how you show up, what you give, and what you allow from others. Your career reflects your standards for work ethic, skill development, value creation, and even your level of fulfillment. Every part of your life, including your mindset, gratitude, and sense of purpose, exists as a direct result of the standards you've accepted. And here's the good news. When you raise your standards, your life rises with them. Not instantly, because growth takes time, but inevitably. When you truly commit to a higher standard, everything around you begins to align to help you reach it. But before we discuss how to raise your standards, let's talk about the cost of keeping them low. Because make no mistake, there is a cost, and it's steep. Low standards rob you of opportunity. Accept less from yourself, and life will return less in every area. The promotion you could have earned, the business that could have thrived, the relationship that might have blossomed, all lost on the altar of low standards. And low standards don't just cost opportunities, they cost time. Years can quietly slip away while you continue to accept conditions you should have changed long ago. Decades can slip by while you're merely getting by instead of truly living. Low standards steal your fulfillment. There's a unique kind of dissatisfaction that comes from knowing you're capable of more, but settling for less. It's a quiet desperation that eats away at your soul. And perhaps the greatest cost of all, low standards become a habit, a way of life. They start to define your identity. You tell yourself, I'm just not good with money. I'm not a morning person. I'm not disciplined. These aren't facts. They're confessions of low standards. I remember speaking with a young woman who said she just wasn't good at relationships. I asked her, if your life depended on it, could you figure it out? Of course, she said yes. It wasn't ability she lacked, it was standards. She had accepted her struggles as part of who she was instead of recognizing them as the result of what she allowed. The cost of low standards is a life half-lived, and life is far too precious, too short, and too full of potential to accept that. So why do people hold on to low standards despite such a high cost? There are several reasons. First, they don't know any better. If you grew up surrounded by people with low standards, you may not even realize higher ones are possible. Your environment shapes what you see as normal, acceptable, or achievable. Second, raising your standards is uncomfortable. It requires change, and change is never easy. It means admitting that what you've been doing isn't good enough. It means facing the uncomfortable gap between where you are and where you could be. Many people choose the comfort of mediocrity over the discomfort of growth. But raising your standards always comes with responsibility. Once you elevate them, you can no longer blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck for your results. You have to take ownership of your life. And ownership is both the greatest privilege and the greatest responsibility you will ever have. Another reason people resist raising their standards is that they confuse them with perfection. They assume high standards mean expecting flawlessness from themselves or others. But that's not the case. Standards are not about perfection, they're about direction. They're about consistently moving towards something better. And perhaps the saddest reason of all, many people simply don't believe they deserve better. They've internalized negative messages from society, past experiences, or the voices of others telling them they aren't worthy of excellence, abundance, joy, or fulfillment. And so, they set their standards to match that belief. But let me remind you, you deserve extraordinary standards. You deserve a life of excellence. Not only because you've earned it or will work for it, but because you are here, a miraculous being with unlimited potential. Now, let's talk about how to raise your standards. This is where philosophy meets action. Step 1 is to become aware of your current standards. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. The first step in raising your standards is recognizing where they truly are. And remember, your standards aren't defined by what you say, they're revealed by what you do. Look at the results in your life right now. Your bank account doesn't lie. Your health doesn't lie. Your relationships don't lie. Even your calendar doesn't lie. All of them reflect the standards you're currently living by. Take time to honestly assess each area of your life. Do it without judgment, but with full awareness. Awareness is always the starting point for change. Step 2 is to decide what you want. After awareness comes decision. You must be clear about what you truly want in every area of your life. Not just what you think you can get, but what you really desire. Dream big here. Ask yourself, what kind of health do I want? What kind of relationships? What financial situation? What career or business? What contribution do I want to make? Most importantly, what kind of person do I want to become? The answers to these questions will help define your new standards. And remember, standards are what you will not live without. So ask yourself, what will I no longer accept in my life? Step 3 is to connect your standards to your values. Standards without values are like houses without foundations. They collapse under pressure. Your standards must be rooted in what matters most to you. If you value freedom, your financial standards should reflect that. If you value connection, your relationship standards should show it. If you value growth, your career standards must align with it. When your standards connect to your deepest values, they stop being negotiable. They become part of who you are, not just what you do. Step 4 is to raise your standards gradually. Here's a word of caution. When people get inspired, they often try to change everything at once. They go from no exercise to 2 hours a day in the gym. From never budgeting to tracking every penny. From no boundaries to rigid rules in relationships. And what happens? They burn out. They get overwhelmed. That's why it's important to raise your standards gradually. Start with one area of your life and focus on one standard within it. Master that, make it a habit, and then move to the next. For example, if you want to raise your health standards, begin by drinking enough water each day. Once that becomes natural, add a daily walk, then commit to better sleep and eventually improve your nutrition. Step by step, your standards rise. Step 5 is to surround yourself with people who hold high standards. You've heard the saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. There's profound truth in that. Your environment shapes your standards. If you're around people who settle, complain, and make excuses, your standards will sink to match theirs. But if you spend time with people who excel, who grow, who take responsibility, your standards will rise to meet theirs. Be intentional about the company you keep. Seek mentors, friends, and colleagues who inspire you with their higher standards. Their influence will naturally pull you upward. Step 6 is to create systems that support your standards. Willpower alone is overrated, and discipline has its limits. If you want to maintain high standards, you need systems to reinforce them. If your financial standard is to save 20% of your income, set up automatic transfers. If your health standard is daily exercise, schedule it on your calendar. If your relationship standard is meaningful connection, establish a weekly date night. Systems turn standards into habits, and habits create results. Step 7 is to track your progress. What gets measured gets managed. If you want to raise your standards, you must track how you're doing, not to judge yourself, but to stay aware. Use a journal, an app, a spreadsheet, or regular check-ins with an accountability partner. The method doesn't matter as much as the reminder it provides to keep your standards front and center. And step 8 is to celebrate small wins. Raising your standards is challenging. It means going against the grain of old habits, and sometimes even against the identity you've carried for years. That's why recognizing progress, no matter how small, is so important. To sustain this effort, you need to celebrate along the way. Did you maintain your new standard for a day? Celebrate. A week? Celebrate bigger. A month? Celebrate even more. But celebration isn't just about feeling good. It's about reinforcing the neural pathways that link your new standards to pleasure rather than pain. Step 9 is to expect resistance. When you raise your standards, resistance will come. From within and from outside. Your old self will resist. Your old habits will resist. Sometimes even the people around you will resist. But resistance doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. Quite the opposite, it means you're doing something right. Growth always meets resistance. The key is to expect it, plan for it, and keep moving forward. Step 10 is to be patient with the process. Raising your standards is not a single event. It's a lifelong journey. There will be setbacks. There will be days when you fall short. There will be times when progress feels painfully slow. That's all part of the journey. The key is to recommit each day, to focus on your standards rather than your failures, and to measure progress instead of perfection. And here's something powerful about raising your standards. It creates a ripple effect that touches every area of your life. Raise your standards for health, and you gain more energy, which boosts your work. Raise your standards for finances, and you gain more freedom, which strengthens your relationships. Raise your standards for your mindset, and you gain more positivity, which improves everything. Life is not divided into neat compartments. One elevated standard lifts all others. It's about recognizing that your life is an integrated whole, and excellence in one area fuels excellence in others. I once worked with a man who decided to raise his standards for physical health. He began exercising regularly, eating better, and getting enough sleep. Naturally, his health improved, but so did his business. He discovered he had more energy, greater clarity, and stronger confidence. That year, his business grew by 40%. Was it because he could do more push-ups? Of course not. It was because raising his standards in one area triggered a positive cascade throughout every part of his life. But here's the challenge. Raising your standards is one thing. Maintaining them is another. It's relatively easy to decide, in a moment of inspiration, that you're going to live differently. It's much harder to live up to that decision day after day, especially when motivation fades and life gets busy. That's why so many New Year's resolutions fail by February. That's why diets last only a few weeks. That's why business plans often gather dust. So what separates those who truly transform their lives from those who slip back into old habits? The ones who succeed understand that maintaining higher standards requires a support system. It requires accountability. It requires community. It requires regular renewal of commitment. And most importantly, it requires turning those standards into identity. Because when a standard becomes part of who you are, you no longer need to force yourself to live up to it. It becomes natural. You just do it because it's who you are. Take this example. Let's say you set a new standard to save 20% of your income. At first, it feels restrictive, like something you have to force yourself to do. But if you stay consistent, something powerful happens. You stop thinking of yourself as someone trying to save money. You begin to see yourself as a saver. It becomes part of your identity. And once it's part of your identity, maintaining it becomes far easier. You don't debate whether to follow through each day. You simply do it because it's who you are. That's the ultimate goal of raising your standards, not just to change your behavior, but to transform your identity. To become the kind of person for whom excellence isn't an occasional effort, but a daily habit. Now let's talk about which standards matter most. While you can raise your standards in almost any area of life, some have an outsized impact on your results. First are your standards for yourself, how you treat yourself, what you expect of yourself, and what you refuse to accept. These are foundational. If you don't respect yourself or demand excellence from yourself, it's nearly impossible to create an excellent life. Second are your standards for your mindset. Your thoughts shape your emotions. Your emotions drive your actions, and your actions determine your results. If you accept negative thinking, limiting beliefs, or a victim mentality, every part of your life suffers. Third are your standards for your health. Your body is the vehicle through which you experience life. If you neglect that vehicle, everything else becomes compromised. Fourth are your standards for relationships. No amount of success can compensate for failure at home, and beyond that, the quality of your life is largely determined by the quality of your relationships. Fifth are your standards for work. Your work represents a major part of your contribution to the world. Whether you're an employee, an entrepreneur, a student, or a homemaker, the standard at which you perform your work matters deeply. Sixth are your standards for growth. In a rapidly changing world, if you're not growing, you're falling behind. Your standards for learning, developing skills, and adapting are crucial to staying relevant and fulfilled. Seventh are your standards for contribution. At the end of your life, what will matter most isn't what you accumulated, but what you gave. Your standards for serving, adding value, and making a difference will ultimately define your legacy. Focus on raising your standards in these areas, and you'll create a life of extraordinary quality. But raising your standards requires courage. The courage to believe you deserve better. The courage to step out of your comfort zone. The courage to risk failure and face the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Not everyone has this courage. Many people live their entire lives according to standards they inherited rather than ones they chose. They accept conditions they should have changed. They settle for less than they are capable of creating. But I believe you have this courage. The very fact that you are here, listening to these words, shows that you are someone who wants more from life, someone who believes in possibility, someone willing to do the work of growth. So I challenge you today, have the courage to raise your standards. Not because your current life is bad, but because your future can be extraordinary. We've covered a lot of ground. What standards are, why they matter, how to raise them, and how to maintain them. But all of this means nothing without one essential element, a decision. A real decision is proven by action. If there is no action, there has been no decision. So right now, I invite you to choose one standard to raise immediately. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready or have more support. Right now, maybe it's the way you start your mornings. Maybe it's how you communicate with loved ones. Maybe it's the quality you bring to your work. Whatever it is, decide now and take action today. Because here's the truth. The quality of your life in this very moment reflects the standards you've set so far. And the quality of your life 1 year, 5 years, or even decades from now will be shaped by the standards you choose and maintain from this point forward. You have the power to raise them at any time, and when you do, everything changes. This leads to what I call the philosophy of excellence. It's a simple but profound way of living. Excellence is not an act, it is a habit. It's not something you do occasionally when you feel motivated or when others are watching. It's something you practice consistently because it defines who you are. Excellence isn't about perfection, it's about purpose. Excellence is about intentionality. It's about giving your best in this moment, whatever your best looks like today. Excellence isn't measured by comparing yourself to others, but by comparing yourself to who you were yesterday. Are you growing? Are you advancing? Are you raising your standards consistently, even if only a little at a time? Excellence is a journey, never a final destination. There's no point where you can say, I've achieved excellence, now I can rest. Excellence is a lifelong commitment to improvement, to growth, to becoming just a little better each day. Most importantly, excellence is a choice available to anyone. It doesn't require special talent or privilege. It simply requires the decision to demand more of yourself than others might expect, to set standards higher than the norm, and to pursue quality in everything you do. This philosophy of excellence, when lived through raised standards, creates a life of extraordinary quality, not instantly, but inevitably. And now, consider the legacy of raised standards. Because when you raise your standards, you don't just change your own life. You influence countless others. Think about it. When you raise your standards for health, you inspire others to take care of their bodies. When you raise your standards for relationships, you show others what genuine connection looks like. When you raise your standards for your work, you elevate what's possible in your field. Your higher standards create a ripple effect that reaches far beyond your own experience. Your standards touch your family, your friends, your colleagues, and even strangers who simply observe your example. Most powerfully, they extend across time. The standards you set today will influence generations to come. Your children, your students, your men's, they will inherit the standards you live by. What greater legacy could there be than showing others what's possible? To embody excellence so strongly that it becomes contagious. To raise the bar not just for yourself, but for all who follow. This is the ultimate impact of raised standards. They outlive you. They become your contribution to a better world. So here's my invitation. Don't just listen to these words. Don't simply nod in agreement or feel temporarily inspired. Take action. Decide today that you will no longer accept less than you are capable of being, doing, giving, or creating. Decide that good enough is no longer good enough. Decide that excellence will be your standard. Not occasionally, but consistently. Start small if you must. Focus on one area at a time. Be patient with the process, but start. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and the journey to an extraordinary life begins with a single raised standard. Right now, you already have everything you need. You have the importance, the ability, and the potential. All that remains is the decision. Will you raise your standards today? Will you demand more of yourself than others might expect? Will you commit to excellence? Not as an event, but as a lifestyle? The choice is yours. It always has been. And that choice, more than any circumstance, background, or limitation, will determine the quality of your life. Choose wealth. Choose excellence. Choose to raise your standards. Thank you for listening, and I wish you health, happiness, and success. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Mindset Daily.